we
Okay.
go.
Right.
Okay. All right. And today is April 5th, 2024. The reading is for John, done by Nick Newmont. John, in a formal reading like this, a couple of ground rules that I always present for your benefit. One, because the numerology and astrology is coming into play, I don't predict death. It's unethical to talk about negative things like that.
Okay.
When it comes to your health, I am a healing intuitive. If I sense something that needs attention, I'll point it out. That way you can get it checked. And if I say anything negative through the process of what we're looking at, please take it as a challenge to turn it into something positive because you control your own destiny. Okay.
Hmm.
And kind of remember when it comes to the predictive sciences, what we believe is that before we're born, we pick our life. We pick when and where we're born, we pick our parents. And so that's the beginning of karma.
I'm on board with that.
Okay, good, good. In other words, the power of choice that begins on the soul level continues in the physical level. As you can stay at home, you can go to work, you can have coffee, you can have tea. All the choices are there at your fingertips. All right. Now, when we get into the astrology, I'll be able to pull the chart up and you'll be able to see it on Zoom. But the
Okay.
numerology, I do all handwritten. And so if any of this is redundant or anything like that, you can let me know. Um, all right.
Right.
So with your birth path number, your character and personality, I show you as a 56 over 2. Okay.
Okay.
And you are a 2 in the way I do the thing. You're not an 11, you're an actual 2.
Okay.
Now, there's the thing about being a 2 as opposed to an 11, there's the 2 personality is calmer than the 11 personality. The 11 personality, someone who's a true 11, they have a tendency to be a lot more wired about things and a lot more intense. The the 2 personality kind of goes with the flow more in
Okay.
life. And there's more of a, I'd say more of a cooperative effort with the 2 personality than the 11. When you get into and you look in the back of my book and you see a lot of the people that are natural 11s, you can see what that personality and ego is like. Um, and I'm sure there's a lot more compared to when I wrote the book. I could probably put a lot more people in there. Now, remember, as a 2 personality, your biorhythms and your rhythms play an important part in who you are and what you do. And it's really important for you to maintain rhythm in your life. And that doesn't mean that you have to get up and dance and all that, but it does mean that that part of you needs to feel like you've got that somewhat in control, that you don't allow people to throw you off. And one of the things I've discovered, from way back, is with the 2 personality, which is always helpful and always wanting to assist, that asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. So when you need help, remember to ask for it so that you get it. Okay. That's pretty huge
Okay. Yeah.
as you go through life. Um, Now you're a 56-2, and you've gone through the book. There's all these variations that go with it. Um, so the 56 means, first of all, change. 5 is the number of change, and 6 has to do with relationships. It has to do with where you live. 56 um, is the movement of energy, along the way, and it can have a very strong emotional effect on a person. Now, when you look at your life, because the 56 can be taken literally, how many times have you moved in your life?
Several. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm going to Greece at the end of the month for 5 weeks, and I'm planning on moving there.
Okay. All right. And
Yeah.
that's a big part of being a 56, whether you're 2 and 11, the change of home front. Um, because there is such a strong emotional component to the 2 personality. And this isn't something I would normally say, or is not even in my book. But just remember, and this is for you directly, John, as a 2, home is where the heart is. You know, wherever you feel that's where you want to be, then that's what you do. And I know in very advanced astrology, and I do this, we can look at, astrocartography and your strong and challenge points on the planet. And that's good. It's done scientifically. But for you, I think that the more you recognize that where you're emotionally drawn to, wherever your heart is, that's your home. And that's where you drop anchor. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And my dad, he lived in a part of Greece which is called Kyparissia, and I went there about 25 years ago. And when I was there, I had this like overwhelming like energy over me, made me feel like this is home, you
Hmm.
know. And I've done some astrocartography the past couple months, and my Jupiter line falls right there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go check it out myself and see.
Right. Right.
Athens, my Mercury line's on Athens, but my Jupiter line's right where I'm gonna be over there.
Right. Well,
So
that's good. I mean, I don't even have
my
to
ascendant
waste any
Jupiter.
time. Yeah, that's
No, my
good.
MC Jupiter, rather, my MC Jupiter. So,
Okay. But midheaven, Jupiter on the midheaven.
yeah.
Yeah, so that means that career things would go very well there.
Yeah, I just started a YouTube station a couple of months ago, and it's called Reality Within. This whole moon is like
Yeah.
my logo. My logo actually, I don't know if you can see this. You
Oh
see,
yeah.
yeah, Reality Within. That's my logo. And basically, it's going to be about my know thyself journey that I've been on since I've got divorced. I got divorced August 2015, and I had no kids, but I was in a marriage for 5 years, and I knew the girl from first date till divorce for 11 years. And
Wow.
anyways, we got divorced, and I went on this know thyself journey. I got reintroduced to astrology. I found my birth certificate, and it said 7:28 a.m. Originally, my mom told me years late, like in 2004, just when I got the numerology book, my mom told me that I was born at 11:30, which made me a Scorpio rising. And I looked into that, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And then when I found out that I was born at 7:28 a.m. and I was a Virgo rising, that's when I got into astrology a lot. And
Hmm.
I dove head first, and I got into Myers-Briggs. I'm an ENFP. I got into human design. I'm a manifesting generator. I got into strength finders. I got into MIDAS, multiple intelligence development of assessment scale, and I found out my intelligences. So that's what I want my YouTube channel to be about, is to introduce people to how to do these methodologies like
Wow.
numerology, astrology, all those things. That's basically what my channel is going to be about.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you have, and we'll get into your chart in depth. I mean, when I ran your chart this morning, my eyes just about came out of my head.
Stellium, huh?
Well, I mean, you've got a Saturn ruled bucket chart
Yeah.
that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Um, all right, I'm going to stay on track here. And like I
Okay, go
said,
ahead.
anything that you feel that or whatever, I mean, you can say that. Um, now you're,
One more thing before we go any
yeah,
further. When I got your book, I also got a book called Sacred Contracts by Carolyn Mace.
yes,
You know that book?
yes,
Yeah. So I read through that book, and that's when I started realizing that we're here on purpose, you know, and we
right,
before we're born, we're shown our whole lives, and then we drink from the river Styx, and then we forget everything, and then we just get born and we live
right.
our lives. So that she was a big turning point in my life too.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for her works and writings and all that.
I saw her live a couple
Did
times
you really?
in Chicago. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do energy healing work too,
Okay.
aside from this. And there's certain authors that I look at as they're very credible. Her, Barbara Brennan, people that are, that they know what they're talking about. So that's good. Yeah, you're quite the student of all of this. You know, your full name comes out to a 2 also. Your
Yeah.
full name comes out to a 20 over 2. Now, even though that's not a perfect match, to have a 2 in, your name and your birth path number, there is an advantage to that. And what that means is what you portray is who you are. So one's a 56 over 2, one's a 20 over 2. It still means that people will get a better read on you, that 90% of us, the birth path number and the full name value don't even come close. And most people go through their life, you know, heading in a direction with people influencing them, saying, you'd be good at this, you should do that. And growing up, you take adults seriously, and then you get into your mid 30s or wherever and go, oh my God, I hate this. What am I doing? So, um, and most people do live that. They report it back like that. And that's why when I was um, writing the book and looking at these patterns, that the one that I call the subconscious motivation, which is the consonants that come out of your name,
Hmm.
that around between age 35 and 40, that's really that maturity and that turning point where we get into recognizing what our deeper or latent desires are, and a better understanding of who we are according to ourselves, not according to what other people think. So it's good to have the 2s in both positions. Now um, your conscious desire number is a 12 over 3. Now, most of the time when a person has 12 over 3 or 21 over 3 in their early development in that conscious desire number, there's somehow an early in life objective realizations of who their parents are, not as mom and dad, but the ability objectively to see them as people and understand who they are. You know, it's kind of surreal in a way to have that happen. Now, for you, John, and again, you've lived a chunk of your life. So when we look at our past, it's kind of woulda, coulda, shoulda. But what you were supposed to learn from being a 12 over 3, that any kind of romantic or intimate endeavor that you got into was supposed to be over 3, meaning you become friends first and allow that to evolve into a romantic endeavor. Like the worst thing for you is to jump head over heels into a relationship and then realize, by doing that, once the honeymoon stage is gone, that, uh-oh, I'm in trouble here. And also because it's 1, 2 over 3, the number 1, which is you, needs to be in the front position or the controlling position in relationships. You have to be in charge.
Yeah.
But it also means in a very kind way, 1, 2 over 3 is you're in support of a partner too. Now, your subconscious motivation number from your, the consonants is a pure 8 with no defining number on top. It's just an 8. And that's in maturity, comfort with money, understanding success and what it takes to be successful, and turning, what you want to do into bigger. The number 8 means you're going after things in a bigger way. Now, your Dharma number is 76 over 4. So that means that getting into teaching and helping humanity as an occupation is how you're fulfilling your purpose in life. That's what 76 over 4 represents.
Teaching and healing, or just teaching
Teaching and healing,
and
helping
healing, right? Yeah.
helping humanity, because that's what 6 is, humanity. The only number that you're missing is the number 9. And when a karmic lesson is the 9, it means that in this lifetime, you have to learn to finish what you start.
Wow.
Now, when a person gets past age 40, I become a bit more insistent that they do recognize what their karmic lessons are. Because if we get too old and we're still working on karmic lessons, it's going to repeat and repeat and repeat. So that's why that's really important to take a look at that and recognize how you feel about, finishing what you start.
Yeah, right now I wrote a poetry book. This is my poetry book right here, Waterside Time Machine Portals. And I wrote this in 2018 during and right after I finished writing this, I had my Chiron return, not my Chiron return. I had my what was it? Something with the Chiron. Yeah, my Chiron return started back then. And it was a book that my dad passed away when I was about 18 and a half, and I started writing poems and short stories back then. And by the time I got divorced, I had all this stuff, all this stuff written, and then I wrote a book, but I only wrote half a book because I have like another on my table right now. I have my other book just sitting there waiting to be done. So
John, in the cover of your book, what did that say about uncovering the Holy Grail of justice,
it says
unveiling the
unveiling
Holy
the holy
Grails of
grails of
justice?
justice.
And why do you reference it like that? I'm extremely curious.
The way I reference it is what I believe is we all have a holy grail inside of us.
Mm,
And then if we do our inner work, that's why my YouTube channel is called Reality Within. If we do our inner work, we could actually have access to that grail, and then we could heal ourselves by going within, meditating and praying and coming up with divinity, coming closer to divinity by moving away from the darkness.
okay.
Yeah,
At some point, not in the wasting your time in the reading, but I'll stay in touch with you. I do a podcast on my Facebook page, and
really?
at some point, I really like that. I want to have you on as a guest
Oh, wow.
and
That'd be
talk
great.
about that. And the part of it is too, first of all, I love that. And I love when people create concepts that they're not copying someone else. This is your concept. You know, in and the more if you watch me on my Facebook page and the
Okay.
podcasts I do, I channel Merlin. All right. And I do have a past life in Arthurian days. So when I see someone writing something about holy grails,
Wow. Yeah.
it's like, oh, I want to know what I'm respectfully wanting to know what you're talking about in there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
That's
we all have a holy grail inside of us, and if we go within, we will be able to access it. And then underneath it says, "Discover healing poetry within," and that's what we. You want to hear one of my poems? The first one.
yes,
Okay,
please
it's
go ahead.
called Echo Brain, and it goes like this. Echo Brain. When I'm lonely, I'm not alone, even though I stay at home. I wasn't like this all the time. I remember when all was fine. All the times that I once had, always happy, never sad. I recall long ago, I knew many, had places to go. Now my wishes could be forgot, and all the dreams that I have sought. Reflect myself from within me. How can I feel I can't be free when all the people are not like me?
Nice, very good.
That's Echo Brain.
Good. Where did you where's the true inspiration? Because you're channeling on some level. Where's that coming from? What's
Well, I owe it all to my dad actually, because when he passed away, that's when all this stuff started happening to me. I started learning how to play guitar. I joined a band, and we were making music. I was like the songwriter, and I wrote a song called Mama Does Cocaine because our band name was Mystic Duck Club MDC. So we came up with Mama Does Cocaine. My mom never did cocaine, but song was written like that, and it's kind of kind of a funny song, and I performed it many times during my poetry writing, well, my poetry open mic nights that I've done in the past. So, and another thing that you may need to know about me is I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I got clean in 1994 in November, and I've been clean and sober from alcohol and drugs for over 29 years now.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so it
Congratulations.
started back then, and again, that was like my current opposition, and yeah, I was really in the I have a saying that I have in my last video that I made. It's called bringing divinity to the darkness. That's my video called. And basically that's what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring divinity to the darkness because a lot of people are in darkness right now.
Right, that's right.
I could bring them to divinity and have divinity come into their darkness, then it'll be the load will be lessened uh, much easier than if they stay in the darkness. So
Well, and John, you probably wouldn't know this about me. Years ago, um, I was a resident hypnotherapist for one of the high-end Malibu rehab houses
oh
out
really?
here. So I, first of all, I commend you and respect you for staying sober. I understand what that means, but also when you get into really rehabbing someone, it's the traditional psychologies are not enough because of the narcissism attached to the ego that gets the person to use and abuse. Spirituality has got to come into play because traditional psychology cannot get around narcissism. It has to be spiritual psychology that does it.
I
And
totally
so
agree.
what you just said there and the way you said that, that's music to my ears because that's what it has to be.
Yeah, and I'm in the 12-step program called Narcotics Anonymous, and I also go to AA meetings too, but I mainly go to NA. And basically, we say it's a mental, spiritual, and physical disease. That's what we look at it as. We look at it as a disease, and it's
Yeah,
mental, spiritual, and physical, and all three have to be taken into consideration. Otherwise, you can't make any progress.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when sometimes people call us, we're a full institution here, John. Um, it's not just me. This is a big place,
Okay.
and and a lot we have a lot of different practitioners here that do different things. And every once in a while, someone will come forward that doesn't want to go into rehab, and they want to use the team of us as outpatient, and I tell them it's not going to work. It is not going to work. You've got to be off the streets. You can't be left to your own devices because you're spending 5, 6 hours a week here. And no, 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 I want to do it. I want to do it. And it doesn't work.
No.
So good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you that you're helping people. I
Yeah, that's what I
uh,
want to do. And I see the 76 4. I read that in your book too, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably that's what the station's about is teaching people and helping them heal themselves.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you have little more than 4 months left in your personal year cycle, the 39-3 that you're in. Now, because you're going to go into 40 over 4 when you get to your birthday,
Yeah.
you better roll up your sleeves and get ready because that cycle is, where you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And you've got to be ready for that. Um, being in a 39 over 3 from now until then, definitely have fun, enjoy your life. 39 over 3, there is something to it that has to do with recycling people. So
Hmm.
you may find that people leave your life, people come back into your life in this time. Um, and then the 40/4 is, oh boy, what did I sign up for? Get ready for that, because that's really, you really do roll up your sleeves and go to work in a 40/4 cycle.
The last time I had a 40/4 was in 2015 when I got divorced, and that just destroyed me.
Because
Yeah.
that's all about the weight of legalities and contracts and things like that. You have to, I didn't write this in the book, but when you're in a 40/4, you also have to make sure that you don't take your left brain into places where um, there's a guilt factor that comes into play, that you're not doing things out of guilt. You're doing things out of that's what you really want to do.
Okay.
And the other thing is, of all the fours, the 40/4 is the one where you have to really pay attention to all details in contracts and things like that, because it's one of the busiest cycles that there is numerologically. And you don't want to wake up one day going, uh-oh. And I mean, in that cycle, you make sure that anything that you have to do that's documented, like make sure your taxes are paid and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's details, details, details is what that is. Now, one, I don't know how much you paid attention to rebirth cycles in my book. You're born in 68, so you rebirthed in 77, um, 86, and 95. And three of them is not bad at all. That's sort of an awakening into maturity at around 27 years old. Um, that one's fine. It's not responsibility too young, but it's also getting on track and kind of finding your legs in your late 20s.
That's when I got clean and when I was 27.
See, that's why these rebirth cycles, I put so much energy into that when I was, before writing the book, because when I researched a lot of people, especially famous people that died, what we would say was prematurely, we all know it's karma, that there was person after person that died in their rebirth cycles. And a rebirth is when your birth path number in entirety, 5/6/2, fulfills itself. See, after 1995, um, you don't rebirth again because it's mathematically impossible for that to happen. So, and you don't want to. I mean, when I've looked at people that rebirthed 7, 8 times, they're just late bloomers and they never really find themselves. But for instance, like John Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe, and I think Jimi Hendrix. I mean, there's a lot of, the list was like this of people that died in rebirth cycles. And the rebirth is, and that's why I draw it in that zigzag pattern, is that you're going one direction and it's like you're headed toward a cliff, but then at the rebirth, you pivot back the other way. And then you go for 9 years and then you pivot back this way. But when people do risky or foolish things in a rebirth cycle, there's like an abyss where if you don't get back on, you go into the abyss and you leave your physical body. And when I had researched my own life, I think, well, we got to look at reality. Science and theories are fine, but in my life, there was things that were so evident that was a big changing point for me. And it also has to do with the theme, like you rebirth in a 2 year. So you'd have to be careful with emotions and partnerships, things with women at that point in time. And the other thing is when we talk about personal year cycles, and I don't remember if I put this in the book or not, that whatever theme you're in, like you're in the 3 now, have fun, network, get with people, create. In the 4 year, you work, structure. When people make a blatant mistake against the theme of that year, they create a problem that can take 9 years until they cycle back
Hmm.
so they can fix it again. And I
Wow.
remember I had this one client years ago. She was a therapist, she was a psychologist, and she wouldn't listen. And she was going into an 8 year. And I said, look, I know you like to go out with men and go travel. I said, but in the cycle that you're going into, please work, make money, focus. And she did the opposite and tracked her. You know, she was a client for a long time, and it caused her problems with unpaid taxes, all kinds of stuff. And
Wow.
it took her 9 years to get her money back on track. So that's why I
Reconcile.
think,
Wow.
yeah. So we look, we set this in motion. This is our time map. So whatever it says, whatever cycle you're in, 39.3, 40/4, then behave according to the time frame that you set up for yourself when you were born. You know, it's not the universe saying, John, you have to do this. It's
I
your
set it up.
soul. It's your soul that's saying, this is what I need to do right now.
Right.
You know, in numerology astrology, they're basically clocks. There's time to buy a house, there's time to move, time to get married, you know, time to change jobs. It's all timing. So, but yeah, you're in a time that now until your birthday, definitely network, meet people, promote yourself, get yourself out there. Because in a 4 year, even though it's work like that, there is a sort of a tearing down, you know, to fundamental levels and rebuilding at that point. And any number, in this case it's 40, that has a zero in it, you know, that all or none factor comes into play. And we get that all or none at times. Let's see here. There we go. So now you've obviously have read and studied enough astrology. You know, when you have a bucket chart in your natal chart, the planet that opposes or it's perpendicular to the receptacle of the bucket, the planet that's the handle is the ruler of the chart. And so the ruler of your chart is Saturn. And Saturn is karma, fate, destiny, lessons learned, institutions, disappointments. It rules your public life. And wherever Saturn is in your chart, you know, that's where a person ends up, you know, the most successful, but and there's always a but, in maturity. And people that are born with Saturn in the eighth house usually have situations or circumstances that occur that are usually kind of heavy. You know what I mean? Um, and it's funny that because the eighth house is the Scorpion house, where you were talking about the river Styx, you
Yeah.
know, that's what the eighth house is.
Really.
That's that area of life. It's the undercurrent of life. It's the house of mysticism,
Yeah, it is.
and it's the house of death and rebirth. It's the Plutonian house where everything transforms. So um, when you have Saturn in the eighth house in maturity, that's when you start to get into, you know, the philosophies and the practices of mysticism, occult practices. That's what that means to be born with that like that. Now, when you have, um, you know, this stellium where all the planets are bunched together, And on top of it, you're not only a multi-Virgo, you're a triple Virgo, sun, moon, and rising sign.
Yeah.
So um, with that much Virgo in your chart, first and foremost, your how you take care of your health is really important because Virgo rules that. Um, most charts like this where Virgo's involved, the person will analyze things to death, hyper analytical. Um, but it's good. It means it's a very scientific approach to things. And because your sun and moon, and you're born with a new moon, the
New
moon
moon,
is
yeah.
in front of the sun in the 12th house. This means that consciously and subconsciously you get into things very deeply. Um, you actually have a very therapeutic mind, John.
Mhm.
Now, you do from what you told me about recovering and AA and all that. I mean, you have the aptitude of a form of a facilitator, a practitioner, with all that Virgo in the 12th house.
Mhm.
Um, the 12th house, I've called for years the dungeon of the zodiac, because it's ruled by Neptune and Pisces. It's secret sorrow, self-undoing, institutions, karma, and addictions. And people that have Jupiter in the 12th house, the indulgent side of Jupiter, um, either will have some form of an addictive personality, at the very least, a consumptive personality.
Okay.
Um, and then you have um, Mercury, Venus, um, Mercury, Venus, Pluto, Uranus, all
In Virgo.
all in the first house.
House. Virgo, yeah.
See, and for someone like you with a chart like this, through the years, no matter how hard you try to work for someone else or in a company, it's always going to come back to you. There's just so much in the first house, which is a house of self, and
Mhm.
that creates a strong need for self-expression.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you have one, two, if you include your rising sign and your part of fortune, nine nine major aspects in Virgo. I mean, that's like just the planets alone, 80% of your chart,
Oh, there.
70% of your chart is Virgo.
Yeah.
You have Mars in Leo, you have Neptune and Scorpio. But see, the Neptune and Scorpio in the third house is the ability to understand very deep advanced concepts and the ability to turn around and teach it.
Wow.
You could go to some kind of conference and people are going, what the heck are they talking about? And it would cause you to go, wait a minute, you don't understand what they mean? Of course.
Yeah, I can connect the dots pretty easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Neptune and Scorpio is one of the deepest, when you look at astrology, it's one of the deepest minds that you can have. And to put it in the third house, that's your fundamental knowledge. So deep things are, and in fact, I'm laughing at myself as I'm about to say this. You have to make sure, John, that as much as you understand very deep things like this, that simple things don't escape you. Now, now I will say this, that with Neptune and Scorpio in the third house, at times common sense could go out the window.
Okay.
you have to make sure that along this process, you're not thinking so far ahead that you're neglecting basic things where everybody else would go, John, that's simple. Why aren't you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind too, John, you did go through a period with Neptune and Scorpio with addictive behavior. That's part of, that belief system.
Right.
Um, and then you turn around and in the 11th house, there we go. Then you've got Mars in Leo. Um, for some people, with Mars and Leo, because the 11th house is your social structure, groups, organizations, things like that. For some people, you might come off strong, okay? Having Mars and Leo.
I do.
So you have to learn to dial it back a little bit for some people, having Mars and Leo.
Yeah. Yeah. I've experienced plenty of that.
Um, but it's not the kind of thing that's going to make you enemies, though. I do want to make sure that's clear.
Okay.
Um, the 11th house is also called the love you receive. So that could also mean that, say, um, say a woman is interested in you,
Okay.
that she could be somewhat, say, assertive or aggressive. You would come off as approachable with that.
One job I used to do, Nick, I used to be an outside salesperson for a dealership of ADT. Okay.
Ah,
And
yeah.
I used to knock on 100 doors a day. And I would be in homes every single night for 3 years when I did that job. And it was 100% commission. So if I didn't sell, I didn't get paid. So I got really good at convincing people to let me into their homes.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I
Well,
got really good at that.
that's Mars and Leo,
You think,
definitely.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Now,
was able to
as
win
we,
people over really easily.
yeah, because it's convincing,
Yeah.
very convincing. Now, where we are, and this is, I saw this morning when I originally ran your chart. Here's your progressed moon. That's the inner moon. And it's just 4 months ago that the progressed moon crossed the ascendant and went under the horizon. Now, when the moon, progressed moon, goes under the horizon like that, well, first of all, crossing the ascendant is referred to as an emotional rebirth. And because the first house is the house of self, what this means is there's a level of recreation about yourself that is in the process of taking place here. You're going to recreate yourself according to you.
Well, let me give you a brief history real quick.
Sure.
When my dad passed away in 87, he got electrocuted under a dishwasher trying to fix it because we had a
Oh,
restaurant then. So it was awful. I went to school and I was using drugs. It took me years to get clean. But my mom, what she did was she sold the restaurant eventually, and she got the money from the life insurance and she bought apartment buildings. Okay. She bought
yep.
two six-flat apartment buildings in Wheeling, which is a suburb north of Chicago, northwest of Chicago. And I've been managing them since 1990, the apartment buildings. My mom just passed away June of last year.
Um,
So she's no longer in the picture. She transitioned and she left me and my sister the apartment buildings and the house, and we just finished selling them last month. Both of them. We sold both apartment buildings and we sold both the house too. So now I don't have that obligation anymore to work as a property manager that I was a property manager from my mom for over 30 years, like 35 years almost. Now that's all gone. Now I can reinvent myself completely the way I want to do it. That's why I'm
right.
going to Greece.
Yeah, this is
Me and my sister have land on the Mediterranean in Greece. So
good for you.
yeah.
Good for you. So
So
this is,
a
yeah,
whole
this is a
chart, right?
whole new with the moon in the first house. This is fulfilling your emotions. Um, a couple general things until
Okay.
April 25th, Mercury is retrograde.
Right.
So be smart. You're born with Mercury direct in Virgo. So that arrangement can get very affected. Having Mercury retrograde in Aries, um, like I talked about this in great depth on my show Tuesday night. I
Okay.
wrote about it, and people have got to make sure that they think before they speak and they don't shoot their mouth off, because this can burn a lot of bridges, with Mercury retrograde in Aries. And there's all the generalities of Mercury retrograde about not signing contracts or buying electronics and all that stuff. Like for instance, as you make plans, like if people are going to travel, I say, like, double and triple check your itinerary, label your luggage, you
Right.
know, do the smart things, because Mercury is also the planet of common sense. Do what makes sense.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
then on Monday, Monday we get that eclipse in Aries,
Mhm.
and it's going to be intense. It's going to be very intense. Saturn and Mars are almost right on top of each other on the day of the eclipse. That can create a lot of clashes between people, rebellion against authority, with Mars and Saturn. So we need to mind our P's and Q's on Monday with this new moon. Uh,
I'm I'm going with my friend Dimitri down south towards Indianapolis to view the eclipse.
oh, good,
Yeah.
good. Yep. Yeah, it's good that be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the path starts near the Texas-Mexican border and just goes northeast toward Maine,
Yeah.
when you see it.
Basically, if we go close to Indianapolis, there's a town called Nineveh, which is a biblical town, and there's a lot of biblical Ninevehs all over this pathway. That's how they named it. It's weird how they named them, but we're gonna go into like a forest reserve that's hiking, and we're gonna just go find a spot to sit there and watch it.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, enjoy that.
yeah.
Now, the big alignment that's going to benefit all of us is April 20th and 21st. And that's when Jupiter and Uranus align. And that only happens every 14 years. That is a very benevolent alignment to have. And since that's happening in Taurus, I think this is going to be the beginning of how global finance changes.
I
I
agree.
think this, say it again.
I agree.
Okay. All right, good. I think a lot of things that have been talked about and hinted at, I think this is the beginning of that.
Yeah,
Financial systems changing, um, things happening with currencies around the world. This is the beginning of that stuff. Because I also do astrological history, and I plot when these things have happened before.
oh, yeah,
And it's a good aspect to have coming up. Now, in your chart, this is happening in the ninth house, and what Jupiter and Uranus represent, because is the ninth house is advanced belief systems, spirituality, wisdom, studies, life philosophies. This is going to be very mind expanding for you. And also, John, the ninth house is the house of writing and publishing.
right.
So this is going to give you a lot of ideas. You're going to have Uranus in there for like another 4 to 5 years. And Uranus by itself in the ninth house is revelations and epiphanies. And then Jupiter, and by the way, Jupiter rules the ninth house. So Jupiter is at home in your chart. And what else is the ninth house? Foreign cultures, long distance travel, foreign languages.
Right.
Um, Jupiter will be in your ninth house until the middle of July. And when Jupiter retrogrades in early October, by the time it goes direct, um, it will retrograde in January of next year back into the ninth house briefly, and then leave the ninth house completely February 23rd of 2025. Now, even though a year away seems like a long time, then you're going to get a year of Jupiter in your 10th house, which is career expansion.
Right. And
Expansion of,
that'll be during my 4 year.
yep, yep, yeah, exactly. So this is extremely positive. What's coming for you. Now, the other thing that stood out when I did your chart this morning is that we're right on the cusp, literally and figuratively, of Saturn going into your seventh house. Now, this is very fortuitous when it comes to contracts and things like that. It's extremely positive. And also, because it's going to be there for almost 3 years, my sense is that it's going to be the beginning of what leads to another significant romantic relationship in your life.
You think when Saturn goes in my seventh?
Yep,
Really?
yep.
That makes sense.
And it'll be in there. I mean, it's right on the doorstep now. It's basically there now. And Saturn will be in your seventh house until um March, early March of 27, 3 more years. So I have a feeling that that is, um, in fact, I'll take that even further. There's something that's happening next year, which I haven't started to um, write about this yet, but I'm going to. And when we get to, let's see here, when we get to June of 25, we get the beginning, and it'll come back later on into 26. Next year, next summer, summer of 25, is where we start to feel the Saturn Jupiter alignment. And that doesn't happen very often.
Saturn, Neptune.
Saturn and Neptune are going to align in 25 and 26. This will be the release of the old structure, the old systems tearing down, and the new spirituality taking hold in life.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Look, we are, I know there's a lot of weird stuff that happened in the world, but we are in changing times right now. We're in the age of Aquarius.
We
And
are.
although there's all these old structures and people that get caught up in, and look, you can watch, if you choose to watch regular news and stuff like that, and that's what's reported, and people can buy into that.
Yeah.
We are in very deep changing times right now, and people who are more conscious and more fifth dimension oriented are going to go, of course, this is what's supposed to happen. And then people who are left behind in three-dimensional consciousness are going to be going, what happened? What happened? And we're in the next couple of years, we're in this big shift of consciousness. It's happening now. Even though when a person say they watch the news or watch whatever's reported, it looks all bleak and dark and stuff like that. That's just fear that's being put out there. But when Neptune and Uranus align in 25 and 26, we will see the old systems breaking down and tearing down, and the new coming in and taking over. And, you know, I remember going to a conference a chunk of years ago. You know, of course, you know who Greg Braden is, right?
I have a what?
You know who Greg Braden is, the
No.
spiritual physicist.
Oh, Greg Breeden?
Yeah, Braden, Greg Braden. You
Okay.
know, and guys like that are scientific spiritualists
Okay.
that were into quantum physics and all that. You know, the whole idea of compassionate politics has been talked about for years. This is something that's coming in the years ahead.
Wow.
So, and that's part of the Aquarian age, but the Aquarian age is real not about long-haired hippies and stuff like that. It's a disruptive shift, like an earthquake, and it makes everything rock and roll for a while until this new humanitarianism can settle in. You know, when to be on the planet right now and to witness an age change that only happens every 2,000 years, we're witnessing something very powerful. We can read books and see that 2,000 years ago was the age of Pisces
Right.
and what they do in theory. We're living this right now. And that's why the world seems so weird at the moment. Because all the old structures, tenets and belief systems are being torn down. But the old is trying to hold on. So yeah, it's a moment of hold on for the ride, but it'll be good ultimately. You know, for you, John, what I get about you psychically and talking about traveling to Greece, moving to Greece, my sense is that this is going to happen sort of naturally, automatically, and faster than what you think. And the more, like you talked about selling these properties, I think that that's a good thing to do
And
because
we
I
sold
think
them.
what's that?
We sold them.
Yeah, that's yes.
And we
I
sold
think
everything. Yeah.
yep. I think that's a great move because what I see for you unfolding is this is going to happen fast. I do sense that you'll go to Greece, come back home, and sort of close the books on things, and you're going to move back there, and that's it. That's the
Yeah.
story.
I'm looking at my next personal 1 month, which I think is going to be in July. And
46 over 1. Yes,
yeah.
it's July.
So if things work out, I may come back in June 1st. I'm going to come back. I may come back and say, you know what? I'm packing everything up, and in July, like the first week or two in July, I may be moving there for good.
Well, that's my sense. That's what I
Yeah,
sense is going to happen.
that's what I think might happen.
And look at this right now. You have Uranus in the ninth house, which is foreign affairs, forming, moving toward a perfect trine
Oh, trying. Wow.
to Pluto at 2153 of Virgo. In the
Interesting.
next few weeks, Uranus will be perfectly trining Pluto, which will be a sudden change that causes you to disengage from the old and go into the new. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
this is in the next few weeks. It's applying now
I'm gonna
because
I'm
Uranus
gonna
is in, go ahead, go ahead.
July, no, April 27 is when I'm leaving for Greece.
And um, the exact station of Uranus trining Pluto is, what is that, 2153 is April 22nd.
Oh wow, just before.
Right.
Right after the Jupiter Uranus conjunction.
Yes, like a couple days after. So you're headed into a really powerful time with this,
And there's going to be a full moon in Scorpio on the 23rd.
right? And Mercury goes direct on the 25th.
And yeah, the 25th, Mercury goes direction stations. Yeah.
So there's a lot of action in your chart regarding this.
I know.
And see, then Mercury, once it goes direct on the 25th, will return to the ninth house. What is that? 12 and a half of Taurus. Um, that would be like May 24th
okay.
when Mercury goes into your ninth house.
Huh?
And that'll be um that will have more to do with making travel plans. Um, John, while Mercury is retrograde in your eighth house, and it'll be retrograde the entire time, it'll be in the eighth house the entire time it's retrograde. Be very careful about at the moment selling off like stocks or anything prematurely.
Yeah, I'm not doing anything like that.
Okay,
Yeah. My money situation is frozen right now.
okay, all
Yeah.
right. That's fine. That's good. We want to leave
Yeah.
it there.
I,
Now,
I I saw what was coming and I'm like, I don't want to do anything during the retrograde.
yeah,
Um, but
smart.
yeah.
Now, with Pluto, Pluto is now coming off and in conjunct to your sun. Now, as that moves off, what that will do is alleviate anything that you would think is some kind of deep-seated or just sort of a dull agitation. When Pluto in conjuncts the sun, it can cause a feeling of um, like something's bothering you. Uh,
Like underlying uh
yeah, like it's like an undercurrent, but you can't really put your finger on what's wrong.
like almost like impending doom.
Yep, yep, because that Pluto's so heavy, but it's moving off of that now. Okay, so that'll give you relief from that,
Okay.
of whatever that feeling, that sort of like a nagging kind of feeling that like, yeah, like you can't put your finger on it. Now, um, with Saturn coming off, well, Saturn is moving into, well, we should talk about that. That's really important. When Saturn crosses the descendant and
But
opposes
I'm,
the ace,
I wanna stop my video for a moment, but I'm still gonna be able to listen. I gotta go get something over here. But go ahead and keep talking.
so when Saturn opposes the descendant, that is the completion of a 14-year journey of something that you set in motion when Saturn crossed the ascendant. So what's going on now is a realization of things that you intended anywhere from 13 to 15 years ago.
What year was that?
The exact moment of Saturn crossing your ascendant was, and I'm gonna tell you exactly. Or, um, that would have been in September of 2008. September of
September
2008.
2008. That was when I was about to get engaged to my ex-wife.
Huh.
We were living together and things were going at a bad spot because I told her, wait. 2008 is when we were dating. I wasn't married to her yet. We were dating and I was about to propose to her. I was thinking about it. Yeah. And I was working at my job at the ADT, knocking on doors back then.
Huh,
And I was there for about a year, and I really liked what I was doing. Yeah.
right. Well, that's, when Saturn crosses the ascendant, that's called an environmental rebirth. And it's usually an adjustment with the environment. People move, they change jobs.
I was moving a lot back then
Yeah,
with
that's what
her.
that
Every
does.
couple of years we were moving.
Well, this is where Saturn is now on the descendant, is the completion of what you set in motion back beginning in 2008.
Is it really significant when it goes on the northern horizon?
Yep.
There is, right? Big significance, right?
Yes, there is.
Like a new rebirth
Yep.
or something.
Yeah. So this is a journey that's completed and a new journey coming into effect.
Oh wow,
So
that's
you're
crazy.
closing the books
Yeah,
2008 right now.
yeah. That's crazy.
So, and when you get Saturn for 3 years in your seventh house, you can be prepared for a lot of negotiation, dealing with authority figures, dealing with government, settling things. It's a really important time. The other thing is, even though Saturn rules the 10th house, which is career and reputation, there is a level of notoriety that comes with Saturn in the seventh house. In fact, one of the most frustrating times a person can go through is the 2.5 years, 2.5, 2 and 3/4 years of Saturn in the sixth house. That's a feeling of like doing a lot, not getting any acknowledgement, recognition, things of that nature. Saturn in the seventh house is a return to visibility.
So when is Saturn in Pisces then?
Um, it is now, and it will be for a couple more years.
Oh, but it hasn't been in my uh in my seventh house yet.
No, it's just now going in. Your seventh house cusp is 1424 of Pisces, and Saturn as of today is 14.9 of Pisces. And if you track it at 1424, that would be like Tuesday of next week.
Crazy. Yeah, like you said, that's what you were talking about. The 23rd.
Yep.
Or not next week. Oh, next week.
Next week on the 9th,
On the
Saturn
ninth.
goes into your seventh house. Yep.
Wow. So I'm gonna feel it like, well, I'm not gonna feel it, but I'm gonna be noticing it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like when Saturn um rises into the seventh house, it's kind of like flowers that you planted that are now poking up through the ground.
That's crazy. Well,
Yep.
that's what it feels like to me because all of a sudden I've had all this stuff on my YouTube channel and it really hasn't been going anywhere because I haven't been putting that much effort into it. And now that I got everything sold with my mom's apartment buildings and my mom's house and everything, I have like time now to get my affairs in order and get my station up and going and putting stuff on a regular basis on there, you know. And I just finished I took an astrology class with Astro Butterfly last September, a 10-week
Uh-huh.
course on natal chart reading. And then I also did another course in January that got done a couple weeks ago, an advanced class. And now I signed up for a third class on Chiron. And I just finished the second week today. And I got one more week of Chiron next week. And then I'll be done. I'm not taking any more classes. I'm sick of taking classes, you know. But I think it's
Right.
because of my ninth house is why I'm taking all these classes because I got
Yeah.
there right now. That's probably why I'm taking all these classes, and Uranus too. 'Cause
Well,
Uranus,
and the other thing is,
so,
because the way the planets are bunched, truly Neptune is just now coming off of an opposition to Uranus. See, and that's why it's your brain needs fed all this information coming in, you know,
Neptune. You said
and so
Neptune.
as Neptune drifts off the opposition to Uranus, that'll give you a little bit of a mental break.
Are you saying Neptune or Jupiter or
Yeah, so Neptune at 28
oh
of
28? I see.
Pisces is just coming off the opposition to Uranus at 2750 of Virgo.
Oh,
Oh,
that is
wait a minute, wait a minute. No, it just came 2805 of Pisces. Yeah, yes, it's just now, it's because of the way your chart is made.
yeah,
That
because everything's stacked.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just now coming off of the opposition to Uranus. That fills your brain with advanced concepts.
Oh, no wonder.
And it also take your brain into places that you're not usually used to going.
With both those two outer planets. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
interesting.
And the other thing is, when we go back into last year, you had Neptune trining Neptune. Well, that's when your mind is able to just go into all these places, especially on a spiritual level, where information is just flowing in.
And that was last year.
Yeah. Yep.
Now I notice you're using Koch.
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm just starting out now, and I've been comfortable with whole signs. Um, and would you be how long you been doing Koch for?
Ever since I started, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's in serving you really well, huh?
Yes, it has. And
Okay,
then and who I studied under, that's how I was taught.
right.
Yeah. And it's worked. I think you there's being a technical astrologer, and then you also trust the insights that you're getting.
Hmm.
So it's a matter of, what comes through, while you're looking at the planets is just what you channel and what you feel, that you
How,
need to tell who you're reading for.
how it speaks to you, right?
Yeah. Um, I've got to close out
Okay.
pretty soon. I gave you some extra time because we had some chit chat in there. Is there anything else you need to ask me or?
Um, if I do want to move to Greece, and I end up wanting to do that, the timeline that I was telling you, the quick one, like to do it on my one personal month, would probably be more advantageous than if I waited till like September of this year to move there or October.
Um, in July, there's no Mercury retrograde.
Right.
That's first and foremost. Um, the next Mercury retrograde comes in around August the 5th. So I would do that in June. Um, when we get into the summer, remember Jupiter is going to be in your ninth house, which is travel, until the middle of July. So that's extremely, extremely favorable for you.
I see
Uh,
what you're saying.
and then the other thing that comes into play at the end of June, Mars, which has everything to do with movement, goes into your ninth house, and Mars is in your ninth house until around August the 7th. And
Ours?
Mars, Mars goes into your ninth house at the end of June.
Wow, that's right.
And that's what triggers movement.
And it's going to be there probably just for 2 months, right?
It'll be there until um, August the 7th. About 6 weeks.
Okay. All right then.
And see, oh, when Mars goes into your ninth house, it'll trine Jupiter, trine your ascendant, trine Mercury, trine Venus, trine
Everything
the part of
fine.
fortune, and trine Pluto and Uranus.
That's wonderful.
Yes, it really is.
That's in July, basically. End of
Yeah,
June, end of June, July.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And then, once we get later in April this month, and in fact, I want to say this specifically, 2052. So on April the 30th, you're going to get Jupiter in the ninth, perfectly opposing Neptune in the third. I mean, the creative ideas that you can get in a Jupiter Pluto opposition will be incredible.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in Greece then. So
Yeah, so there would be a lot of inspiration that comes your way. John, I think that when you go to Greece this time, you know, my feeling is that you're going to be even more tuned in. And my sense is you're going to have a lot of past life realizations.
wow, really?
Yep. You're going to feel, it's going to feel very familiar.
That's that that seems like it's gonna happen like that. Yeah, I agree with you. Because last time I went there, I had a kind of like weird, um, heavy deja vu. Like I've been here before. This is my home and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I think it's going to be like, oh yeah, I'm meant to be here.